Hey, welcome everybody. In today's video, we are going to be doing a code review of our project written by an intern. So we'll be learning what we can avoid doing in our early phase of learning Laravel, how to properly structure the code, what not to do, and what to do and how to do. So we'll be learning some best practice, what to avoid. Let's jump into code. So this is the project for doctor recommendation system where the patient can book appointment to the doctor, search for them, and they can book an appointment, they can see their appointment, and so it is a pretty basic app. And first thing what I will look in project while reviewing is first thing code. So looks like it is both API as well as web project. First they have created a form for all the things to manage doctors and payments, and also how to onboard patients or doctor, and they also created API for same thing. So it is a really good thing to learn while learning. For a same project, you build web routes and API routes, and you'll get lots of duplication between both controllers, and you'll learn how to manage those kind of duplication and how to properly manage code. So let's first view the web related route. So while seeing these routes, I can say that there are a lot of commented code. So these comments, if comments are helpful, then only you can write, otherwise. So looking at these route, I can see there is no particular pattern. The naming convention are not being followed. You can see view, doctor, update. So for things like this, you can just simply go with the resource route. Just make a resourceful controller, and instead of writing all these, just write route resource. So if in some controller you only need one or two method, then you can do while after writing resource controller, you can do what kind of route you like using. Only if you only need index and delete, then you can do like this, and you can do accept. So always stick to resourceful controller. And second thing, so the most important thing is to dry up your code. Don't repeat something. So let's go into one route, which is review controller. So as you can see, there are two review controller, one for API and one for web. And if you see over here, in both controller the functionality will be same, only difference will be of this view. In web related route you just return view, in API you return a response. That's JSON response. All right, so so all the business related logic, how to manage. So first thing you can see over here, first let's go through it. So first thing is you need to do all your validation in form request class. So just create a new form request class. There is command for that. There's command for everything. If you write PHP artisan, then you should, in my case, little bit. Yeah, maybe I have not run, but you get the idea. There is a PHP artisan form request command which will generate a form request class for us. Let's say review. So I'm using Laravel IDEA plugin, so it might generate that. So this is the form request class where you should write all the rules and then use that in your controller. So if you do that, you can use same request class in your API and your web route. Also, if you see over here, whenever so these kind of check belongs to the policy class. So instead of doing those in controller, you can write a new policy class and put those there. All right. And there are cases you might want to check few things like to do the review, the status of appointment should be completed. The logic is totally fine, but here you can see abort. So we should give them a proper message. Instead of aborting application like this, we can redirect them to previous page with some message. Instead of aborting this will show the exception message or 403 page, which is not helpful if our main customer is patient, right? So we should be giving them best user experience. So keeping that in mind, this is not that good. And first thing should be the validation check, and then policy check, and then other logics. So most of the case will be handled by the form request class while doing validation, and remaining one over here. All right. So let's go to payment controller, where we might do some refactor. So all the payment related logic are also repeated here in both API and web route. So to avoid that, you can create a new class called payment service class and put the business logic in service class and use the methods from service class in both controller. So there are other ways to write business logic. Some people write all in model itself, Eloquent model. Some write in action class, and for now I think for initial phase it is good to write in service classes. You just keep the Eloquent model really clean and simple. Only write all the relationship there, all the mutators, accessor. There are a lot of things that you can write on models, which is the right use of Eloquent model to write all of the default things that Laravel suggests us to write, and all the business logic in service classes, all of these kind of queries. So as your application gets bigger, there will be lot of queries that you might need to write. So all the database related interaction, I would like to put them on a repository class. Just create a new folder, one services folder and repositories folder. All the queries related thing you call from repository. So controller will be very thin. So controller should be very thin. As you can see, this controller is really big, like hundreds of lines of code, which is not that good. The responsibility of controller is to just pass the data that user provided or browser provided. You can say client, whatever client provided, just pass them to proper services, interact with Eloquent model, and then pass on the response to the client, in our case user. So that should be kept in mind. Another thing that you can do is you can keep in mind is like a mass assignment thing. So as you can see in user model, there is a role field which has been put in as a fillable field, which is not that good. This role is the main factor which determines what kind of user the logged in user is. The role can be admin, patient, doctor in this application. So making this fillable is not good idea, because you might miss in some places. You might just write user and create request all. In that case, whatever our malicious user provides in the request will be passed on to the database. So there is no protection for this particular field. So this field requires protection, so we do not put that on fillable. Instead, what we will do is in controller we will explicitly write separate code or do some logic check, and then only we will insert that into our database. So that is one thing. And another thing is, while writing any function or classes, we should keep in mind that the one function should have only one responsibility. So one function shouldn't do many things, like I showed earlier in payment controller. The payment controller, this method is doing a lot of things. It is responsible for validation. It is responsible for checking in whether the logic is right, like in review controller, which I showed you earlier. Alright, so this is doing this kind of check as well. So the responsibility of this function is not to do all these things. The name is save review, it should save review. Other things should be written in separate classes. Validation in form request class, this in policy, and other response related things on API resources. So that is an important thing. Single responsibility whenever you create classes or methods, just keep that in mind. And another thing is, what you can do here is, let's go to appointment resource. So this is API resource, and you will find yourself writing these kind of logics, and you might be wondering if this is good practice or not. So I think this resource has been used to display appointments for patients as well as doctors. So doctor might want to see their appointments, and also patient want to see their appointments in their dashboard. So this is totally fine. If you only want to change any one particular field, this is totally fine doing this on one place. If you find yourself putting 2 or 3 attributes, checking for doctor you want to display patient name, for patient you want to display doctor name, and there are other fields that you might want to change according to the role, then it is better to create doctor appointment resources and patient appointment resources, which will make things a lot easier. Also here we are directly fetching these relationships. If these are not loaded, then it will give us n+1 query. Instead of this, there is a when loaded method on resource that you can use. When patient relationship is loaded, then only use this thing. Just look for these kind of things for API resources, which is very clearly documented on API resources section of Laravel documentation. And yeah, so these things are what we might need to check. Also in our API related controller, you can see this thing is getting repeated. Response JSON. For error you give things like this, status error. For success response you might give status success. So this is just one controller. You want to do this on lots of API related controller, so doing this is not good practice. You might miss something here and there. Sometime you miss status, which will make the responses non-consistent. In order to avoid that, what you can do is just create one trait like API response trait, and use that trait over here. API, let's say API response trait, and just create this class as a trait. And so I'm using PHP strong, which makes it really easy. You can write public function like success, the response for success, and then write all the response. You can get the code from there, put into here, and similarly write for error like these. And you can pass in data here if you ever need to pass data like this. Similarly, message and data here as well. All right, and you can use that in your controller and then use this response. Instead of doing all this, now what you can just do is this success and then just pass message and data, and everywhere you use these response separately, you can replace with this code. All right, this code. I hope you get the idea. So these are few of the tips that might be helpful if you are starting out and want to organize your code. So if you want any detailed video and more tips, just let me know in comment section or reach out to me. Email is webdevmatrix@gmail.com, and I'll be happy to help you. That's all for this video. I'll see you on another video. Bye.